Video deposition obtained by Eyewitness News show how former top jail administrators under West Virginia Governor Jim Justice have struggled to deal with dire conditions at the state's correctional facilities. The depositions are being used as evidence in a federal injunction that claims mounting repairs needs of the facilities estimated at more than $200 million and an alarming number of correctional officer shortages that were ignored over the years by the governor and legislature.
The lawsuit is the deepest look we've gotten of just how bad things could be at the Southern Regional Jail and beyond. On Monday, attorneys representing current and former SRJ inmates are going before a federal magistrate to argue that the state has been destroying evidence in their investigation. Now we're getting a first-hand look at the scope of the problems inside the facility that saw 13 inmates die just last year. At the Southern Regional Jail in Raleigh County are documented instances of no water in cells.
Cell 1, sink doesn't work.
To toilets that won't flush.
Cell 16, toilet doesn't flush.
Mold-infested areas, unsanitary conditions, and allegations of basic human needs like medical care and food being withheld from inmates.
It was just a powder keg at the Southern Regional Jail for the longest time.
Beckley attorney Stephen New is representing current and former inmates at the Southern Regional Jail in a class action lawsuit focusing on conditions inside the facility.
This isn't being soft on crime. The 8th Amendment to the United States Constitution and the West Virginia Constitution talk about cruel and unusual punishment, and there's lots of case law about where the line gets crossed from this is jail and it was not designed to be a comfortable situation to the point where it does get unconstitutional. I believe we crossed that line in West Virginia a long time ago.
New is also filing a federal injunction against Governor Jim Justice and others. He wants to force the state to do $270 million in deferred maintenance and spend at least $60 million to fill vacancies. Corrections officials echoing the same sentiment in recent deposition videos obtained by Eyewitness News that the governor and legislature have repeatedly been told about the dire conditions and needs that have gone unmet and unfunded for years.
Prior to every legislative session, we have meetings with the budget office. We provide them with our needs. Our needs were clearly articulated along with all other Homeland Security agencies. They're advised of that. We transparent, we tell them.
Did you ask the question, how did we get here? How did we get to $200 million of deferred maintenance?
I'm sure that everybody asks that question, and the answer was we depend on the money that's allotted to us. Every year there's a certain amount that is allotted for maintenance, but it doesn't touch what the overarching bill is.
Former Corrections Commissioner Betsy Jividen said she was pressured to resign in July 2022 over the death of a family member of one of the governor's cabinet secretaries.
Who gave you word that the governor wanted you gone?
Jeff Sandy.
And why did the governor want you gone?
I can tell you what Jeff Sandy told me.
Okay, do that.
Jeff Sandy told me that Brian Abraham was upset about Secretary Riston's nephew dying in the hospital after being incarcerated at Southern, and that he had gone to the governor, and that's when the governor had asked for my resignation.
Who is Secretary Riston?
Secretary of Transportation.
In his testimony, Sandy denied it happened, and Jividen said she'd been debating stepping down before that incident out of sheer frustration.
Not being able to get the pay raises, not being able to do the maintenance, it was very frustrating.
The depositions also painting a questionable picture of an investigation ordered by Justice into the Southern Regional Jail in March 2022. Sandy, who was State Homeland Security Cabinet Secretary at the time, said he was ordered to go to the facility by Justice Chief of Staff Brian Abraham.
Why did the governor order this investigation?
Because of all the negative media that was out there concerning Southern Regional Jail.
Allegations in the press that inmates were drinking out of toilets, not being given toilet paper, and sleeping on bare floors.
Those were the main things that they were interested in, was water, toilet paper, and mattresses.
Less than a month before Sandy's visit, 37-year-old Quantez Burks died in custody after being at the Southern Regional Jail for less than 48 hours. The state said he died of natural causes, but a private autopsy proved otherwise.
He walked in and got carried out in a body bag, and it's not right.
2 corrections officers are set to plead guilty in November after federal investigators say Burks was beaten as punishment while restrained.
I was very upset by that. I reviewed the videos myself. I read the reports. I worked on the report. I spent a lot of time going over that. I recommended that an expert be hired to look at that use of force. Several people lost their jobs.
None of that was part of the investigation Sandy was ordered to conduct. Nothing about staffing, overcrowding, a growing number of inmate deaths, or anything other than water, toilet paper, and mattresses. Sandy said he only personally talked to 3 inmates who were handpicked by jail leaders and several COs. 10 more inmates were interviewed by another investigator a week later. He said he didn't step foot inside a cell, didn't check sinks, showers, or toilets.
Did not go into any pod, did not go into any cell. I went to the observation area and looked down on multiple pods.
Test the water from there?
Did not test the water from there, sir.
Sandy said he hadn't been told about a walkthrough and documentation of the shape of the jail just a few months prior when these videos and pictures were taken by a lieutenant.
No means of working communication from cell to tower. So after lockdown, they'd have to beat on the doors.
But later he testified he wished he had. About a month later, the governor's office published Sandy's 14-page report, concluding nothing was wrong at the jail. They called the allegations made in the news simply not true.
It is correct, sir. I stand by the report.
While the lawsuit cites inaction by the Justice Administration, the governor declared a state of emergency over staffing at West Virginia jails more than a year ago and called in the National Guard to help.
We have been dealing with this situation for too long. Way too long.
A month ago, Justice signed several bills meant to prop up the decaying facilities that have a roughly 30% overall vacancy rate. His new Department of Homeland Security Cabinet Secretary and Corrections Commissioner stood beside him.
Now we're on a pathway of making things better for a lot of folks that are here. But not only that, we're on a pathway to hopefully be able to have adequate staffing to where everybody can do their job safely and do their job correctly and do their job humanely in every way.
New thinks the new legislation is simply too little, too late.
Within the Justice Administration, they have the ability to fix a lot of these issues, especially when a state's sitting on a $1.8 billion budget surplus.
Believing it's an issue every West Virginian should be concerned about.
It's the person that gets picked up on a Friday night for a DUI. It's the person who shoplifts $37 at the dollar store or something, who finds themselves in a regional jail. They're in there with the rapists or the sexual predators or the murderers, and if that were someone's family member, they'd want them to be as safe as they could be for as long as they can be in the most humane conditions possible.
We've reached out to Governor Justice's top administration for comment, and Chief of Staff Brian Abraham has agreed to sit down with me early next week. As for the separate federal investigation into the facility that led to the charges against the 2 correctional officers for the death of Quantez Burks, it's still ongoing. Reporting in the studio, Leslie Rubin, Eyewitness News.